Hello there. Today, I want to invite you, especially those of you who carry the intense and transformative spirit of Scorpio, to step into a moment that may not be obvious to the naked eye, but is nearly impossible to ignore on a deeper intuitive level. April 9th is not just another date on the astrological calendar, it is a threshold, a call to return to yourself. In recent weeks, you may have sensed something shifting within you, a nameless feeling, as if you're on the verge of remembering something you thought you'd forgotten long ago. And if you felt that, you're not alone. The planets are speaking, not in grand displays, but in quiet, unwavering pulses. Pause, look inward, and begin there. In today's video, I'll be guiding you through the astrological message meant for Scorpio, not as a forecast, but as a mirror. Together, we'll revisit what's been hidden, the parts of you you've yet to fully live, and how the cosmos is gently but firmly inviting you to step out from your shell. If you've ever felt like you were standing on the edge of something much bigger, perhaps this is the moment you've been waiting for. And that part of you, the one still unnamed, still unlived, is beginning to speak. No longer buried in your subconscious, no longer hidden behind distractions or the roles you've worn just to survive. It's the truest, most potent part of you, the one you believed you had to hide to stay safe, but which holds the deepest capacity for healing and transformation. Saturn's harmonious trine to your sign doesn't arrive with heaviness or pressure. It comes with steadiness, with structure, and with a quiet authority that says, you're ready, even if you don't feel it yet. It's not asking for urgency, it's asking for commitment. Not to anyone else's timeline, but to your own unfolding. Because if you're not ready to live from your truth now, then when? You may begin to notice shifts in relationships that once felt stable or roles that once gave you purpose now feel confining. This doesn't mean something is wrong. It means you've grown. And Scorpio, you are no stranger to growth. You are transformation incarnate. But what you rarely allow yourself is to transform without first being broken. This time, the energy isn't dragging you through the ashes in order to rise. This time, it invites you to rise before the fall, to choose renewal before crisis, to release not because you're in pain, but because you recognize that what once fit no longer does. Astrological maturity in this moment is not about controlling the circumstances around you. It's about facing yourself fully, honestly, without armor, placing your hand over your own heart and saying, this is what I truly desire. Not what you've been taught to want, not what earns approval, but what, if denied, slowly dims the light of who you are. And then something powerful begins to happen. Those decisions you postponed, the conversations you avoided, the opportunities you sidestepped because you felt unready, they begin to return, not to haunt you, but to gently ask, will you say yes this time? Because when you finally step out of hiding, not because you're forced, but because you choose to live more fully, that's when the universe begins to respond. Not with loud miracles, but with subtle synchronicities, perfectly timed openings, and a quiet inner knowing that for the first time in a long time, you're on the right path. Not because someone told you so, but because something inside you remembers. And in the next part of this message, I'll walk with you even deeper through the ways this energy is flowing into your work, your creativity, your most intimate connections, not so that you can do more, but so that you can be more true. Because when a Scorpio lives in their truth, the entire world feels that shift. And here's what's true. You don't need anyone's permission because Scorpio, you are the sign of rebirth. You were never meant to stay hidden, only to choose your moment. And that moment has arrived. You don't need to start over. You only need to remember who you were before you began protecting yourself from being seen too deeply. The parts of you that were once guarded weren't weak. They were sacred. But now the sacred is calling to be lived. Still, when energy this powerful begins to stir, old patterns often try to reclaim their hold. The urge to maintain control, the tendency to keep others at a distance, the need to test people, to push them away just enough to see if they'll fight to stay. These behaviors aren't mistakes. They are echoes of a time when you had to protect your most vulnerable parts. But this moment doesn't ask you to test love. It asks you to trust it. This is not the time for games of emotional survival. This is the time for truth. Clear, steady, unapologetic truth. With yourself and with the people who are ready to meet you there. What's being invited now is a kind of honesty that feels risky, but is absolutely necessary. The honesty of saying, I'm afraid, without needing to justify it. The clarity of admitting I need this instead of waiting in silence, hoping to be intuitively understood. The vulnerability of choosing closeness, even when your instincts whisper that distance might feel safer. Because real intimacy is not built on perfection, it is built on presence. And right now, the energy moving through you is not looking for polished. It's looking for real. You may begin to notice the edges of your life shifting, sometimes gently, sometimes not. Relationships that once felt solid may start to feel brittle. Work that once gave you purpose may now feel hollow. Even your sense of identity, how you've defined yourself until now, might feel like it's being gently dissolved, making space for something deeper, more aligned. This doesn't mean you're falling apart. It means you're shedding. And Scorpio, no sign understands the sacredness of shedding quite like you. And in this shedding, something else becomes clear. The boundaries you once held may no longer serve who you're becoming. Not because they were wrong, but because you've changed. You're not here to live at half light. You're not here to tolerate roles that require you to shrink. You're not here to explain your depth to those who aren't willing to hold it. This season asks you to redraw your energetic borders, not as defense, but as devotion to your own expansion. What drains you must be released. What no longer resonates must be gently blessed and let go. This is the art of conscious transformation, not sudden, not violent, but deliberate, chosen, embodied. You're not here to burn it all down. You're here to refine, to become impossibly honest about what still fits and what doesn't. And from that honesty, to rebuild from a place of deeper clarity, deeper presence, deeper power. As we move forward, I'll be guiding you through how to anchor this transformation into your daily life. We'll look at how this energy wants to shape your relationships, your creative expression, your inner structure. This isn't about dramatic reinvention. It's about quiet, undeniable reclamation. Not proving, not performing, just finally living as who you truly are. Because when Scorpio stops waiting for the world to understand and simply chooses to live from within, there is nothing more powerful, nothing more magnetic, nothing more healing. So what exactly is being invited in this moment? The courage to reveal your fears instead of concealing them behind strength. The willingness to speak your needs clearly without waiting in silence for someone else to guess right. The decision to move toward closeness, even when vulnerability feels like a risk you're not sure you can afford to take. And most of all, the quiet power of no longer abandoning yourself in the name of keeping the peace. In the practical world, this will begin to show up as a deep, almost physical need to renegotiate your boundaries, not from resentment, but from clarity. Relationships that are built on performance or pretense will feel increasingly difficult to maintain. Jobs or commitments that once seemed like necessary obligations may begin to feel like subtle acts of self-abandonment. Roles you've outgrown, whether personal, professional, or relational, will start to crack not because you're breaking them, but because you've expanded beyond what they can contain. And that's the key. You're not breaking down, you're breaking out. This is the moment in the Scorpio journey where you realize you no longer need to earn your transformation through pain. You can choose it through truth. You don't need to collapse to evolve. You can move forward while still standing. That is a radical act for a sign who knows the language of endings so well. But this season is not about endings. It's about integrity, about no longer staying where your energy is dimmed simply because it's familiar. As this energy continues to unfold, you might notice a restlessness, a quiet knowing that something deeper is calling you forward. You may not be able to name it yet. That's okay. What matters is that you honor it. You make space for it. You stop rationalizing the discomfort and begin listening to what it's trying to teach you. Because here's the deeper truth. The discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a signal that you've stayed too long in a version of your life that no longer aligns with who you are becoming. And while it might feel easier to stay, to maintain the illusion, to wait for the right moment, this is that moment. In the next part of this message, I'll guide you into how to ground these realizations in your daily reality, how to listen to the subtle urges that tell you where to say yes and where to release, how to take these internal truths and begin weaving them into how you live, how you love, and how you lead your own evolution. Because Scorpio, when you move from alignment, not urgency, not fear, but deep alignment, your transformation doesn't just change you, it changes everything around you. This is a time for deep purification, not surface level change, but soul level release. A detox of the emotional body, where unspoken grief, suppressed longings, and inherited expectations can finally be exhaled. A letting go of outdated agreements, those you made with others, and perhaps more importantly, those you made with yourself during moments of survival. Agreements that once protected you, but now quietly prevent you from expanding. And most importantly, this is a moment to reclaim your sacred right to transform. You do not need to prove anything. You are not required to earn your evolution through exhaustion. You don't need to explain why you're shifting, why you're releasing, why you're choosing differently now. You simply need to show up honestly, vividly, and unapologetically as the person you are becoming. There is something profoundly liberating in realizing that your power lies not in control, but in presence. The more you inhabit yourself fully, the less you need validation. The more you trust your inner timing, the less pressure you feel to meet external expectations. This is not about rebellion. It's about reclamation, the reclamation of your own rhythm, your own truth, your own knowing. And let me be clear, this kind of transformation doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in quiet decisions, in the way you speak to yourself in the morning, in the boundaries you set without guilt, in the moments you pause to ask, does this reflect who I am now? That is how the new timeline begins, not with spectacle, but with sacred intention. As we move forward into this phase, I want you to begin paying attention to the spaces, the habits, the conversations that leave you feeling less connected to yourself. Begin gently closing those doors. And you don't have to slam them shut. You simply have to stop walking through them out of habit. Because Scorpio, this is not a time to disappear. This is a time to emerge. Not as a version of you that's been shaped by fear or expectation, but as the version that's been patiently waiting beneath it all. The one who remembers that transformation isn't a disruption, it's a return to the essence of who you are when you're no longer shrinking, no longer hiding, no longer performing. In the next part of this message, I'll walk with you through how to anchor this emergence in practical ways. We'll explore how to live this clarity, how to protect your energy without closing your heart, and how to take the sacred fire of this moment and use it not to burn bridges, but to light your path forward. Because the world doesn't need a perfected version of you. It needs the true one. And that version is ready now. So as these questions echo in your inner world, I encourage you not to rush toward the answers. Let them simmer. Let them meet you in quiet moments, in the early morning stillness, in the silence before sleep, in the pause between one breath and the next. These questions are not demands. They are invitations, gateways. And if you're willing to walk through them, they will lead you somewhere more honest, more whole, and more aligned than where you've been. Because you weren't meant to disappear into the shadows. You were born with the sacred task of learning how to live in them and then emerge, carrying their wisdom with you. Scorpio is not afraid of the dark. Scorpio becomes the light that knows where the dark has been. That's the difference. That's your power. So when that fire rises in you, the one you've spent years quieting, rationalizing, taming, don't ignore it. Let it move you. Let it guide your words, even if your voice shakes. Let it shape your choices, even if they take you into unfamiliar territory. Let it be the reason you say no more pretending, no more shrinking. I am ready to live fully, fiercely, and freely. And know this, I will be here when you're ready to step beyond the last place you hid. You don't have to arrive perfectly. You don't have to know exactly what comes next. You just have to begin, rooted in truth, fueled by trust, and willing to be seen not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has finally stopped hiding the questions. Because this world doesn't need more masks. It needs your medicine. It needs your depth. It needs your unapologetic presence. And more than anything, you need to know, not just in theory, but in your bones, that you are worthy of being seen as you are. Not one day, not when you're ready, but now, because your becoming is already underway. And all that's left is for you to say yes.